Hello. So we're on page 61. So the Tupac Darren Encore. I was actually prompted to look for an alternative income stream during the softening of the economy right before the Great Recession. A good friend of mine piqued my interest about the company that I'm involved with. He had been able to retire two household incomes and was a home dad at that time. I said, "Wow, show me how to do this." In network marketing, your initial marketing plan really is to share the opportunity with friends and family. And there comes a time where you feel like you've told everybody. I always joke with people that it takes me 3 years now to recruit somebody. People say, 3 years? Well, that doesn't make sense. Well, once you've had your initial success and you've talked to everybody, then it takes a longer time because people feel like they've missed it or like you were lucky. All those different things and stories they make up in their head. There was one particular young lady that I knew for a few years. Prior to getting involved, we were in the same industry. She lived in Philadelphia. I called her up and sent her to a meeting. I said, "Hey, I kind of shifted. I want you to take a look at what I'm doing. I think you would be incredible at it." She went to the meeting with two friends, and I found out later she stood up in the middle of the meeting and left. So I followed up with her and she said, "It started late and we had something to do. It seemed okay, but not for us." I said, "Okay, cool, no problem." Fast forward 6 months. I called her and said, "Hey, I'm telling you, you'd be great at this. You need to take a look at it." I sent her to one of my company's regional events. I checked in with one of my team members and said, "How'd it go today?" They said, "Oh, it was great." And then I found out that everyone was out at Dave and Buster's. So I thought I would give her a call and see if she would meet about this one more time. I invited her out to Dave and Buster's and she says, "Oh, sure, I love Dave and Buster's." She comes out to Dave and Buster's and she's like, "Man, everyone was paying with those company cards." Because it was a team event after the main event, and she's seeing all of these and says, "I'm interested now." It just so happens that she falls into that dolphin category where social events are more her thing in her comfort zone. And so then she went. She was kind of open at that point. Ultimately, it took her 3 years to get involved. If it wasn't for keeping that drip going, to have kept following up and inviting her, she wouldn't have joined. 3 years in she became Philadelphia's first female senior, excuse me, senior vice president in the entire company. Tupac Dederancourt. Come here, King. Come on. You got to get out of the way. Come on. Top network marketing professional, multi-million dollar earners club, TupacD.com. A heightened sense of nowhereness. Here's a question for you. How many times did you hear the word no yesterday? Last month? Last week? What's the total for the year? Do you know? If not, it's time for you to start counting every no you hear because the very act of counting them increases your nowhereness. And this in turn will enhance your ability to go for no. To do this effectively, you need a process or system for counting the number of no's you hear. The most formal device would be a handheld counter, which can be found online. But these are not necessarily, and quite frankly, we find them bulky and impractical to use unless you're a telemarketer sitting at a desk and out of sight of the customer. Instead, we suggest using the very effective process created by W. Clement Stone. W. Clement Stone, founder and president of Combined Insurance Company of America, was one of the greatest businessmen and philanthropists of the 20th century. He was also the original publisher of Success Magazine and author of some of the most important self-help books ever written, including Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude and The Success System That Never Fails. And more than anything, W. Clement Stone was a salesman and proud of it. Stone had an interesting and effective technique for helping new salespeople get over their fear of rejection. When training new people, he would have them put 20 dry beans in one of their pockets. To keep them from getting discouraged, he would tell them, "When you get a no from a prospect, move a bean from one pocket to the other. I promise that before all 20 beans have been moved, you'll get a sale." And he was usually right. Now, you could just keep track in a notebook, right? Sure. But placing the beans or glass stones that can be bought from a Craft stores like Michael's in your pocket serves as a reminder to go for no throughout the day. Like many people tell us, the stones turn selling into more of a game as opposed to a task, making the process fun and reminding them not to take the process so seriously. That is what selling should be, right? It should be a game. Whatever method you decide to use, you must put a process in place for counting the no's you receive. The value no, you must know its value. Oh, to value no, you must know its value. One of the most popular approaches to enjoy hearing no is to calculate the dollar value of each no you obtain. This is done by taking the total value of all your sales or production over a given period of time. The longer the period, the better and more accurate. And dividing that amount by the total number of no's and yeses it took to achieve it. To illustrate the concept, consider this story. In 1967, Alan Breed began offering the airbag sensors he invented to Detroit automakers, but the top three automakers told him to get lost. They weren't interested in such an expensive item they perceived as unnecessary, but Breed didn't go away. Not only did Alan Breed keep pestering the automakers, but he also invested huge quantities of time and money lobbying Congress. Finally, almost 20 years after he started, Congress passed legislation mandating the use of airbags. But it still took another 10 years before his first sale was made. It wasn't until 1995, almost 30 years after Breed's first rejection, that Breed Technologies, now Key Safety Systems, made its first sale. And we do mean big. The sale was for 23 million airbag sensors for a net profit of $120 million. Now, here's the question. Did Alan Breed earn $120 million in 1995 when the automakers finally said yes? Or did he earn $4.2 million a year for every year he was willing to hear no? Admittedly, this is an extreme example. So let's take it down to a typical day-to-day scenario that is a little more relatable. Mary traditionally closes out 1 out of every 5 presentations she makes with an average sale worth $500 in commission. Dividing the $500 Mary earns in commission by the total of all calls, in this case 5, the 4 no's and 1 yes, we determine that every time Mary makes a presentation, she makes $100, regardless of the outcome. In this way, neither yes nor no has a greater value than the other. You may be familiar with this idea already, but even if you've heard it before, there are 3 things we know. 1, even if you've heard it, chances are good that you've never actually taken the time to calculate the value of every no you've heard. 2, even if you do know the value, you probably don't think about it every time you hear no. And 3, even if you're consciously thinking about the value every time you hear no, you are almost assuredly not verbalizing it out loud to yourself. And verbalize it you should, at least if you're going to begin valuing it, that is. Now let's be clear, we're not talking about verbalizing it out loud in front of a prospect, though we've actually run into a few people who did. Do it when you're alone after a meeting or after hanging up the phone and say, thanks for the however many dollars. Whether the answer was yes or no, it doesn't matter because that's the point. All right, see you next time. King says bye.